Once I pointed out to Lish that the twins might like more details, some fleshing out of the story, maybe an address or a present on their birthday, a postcard. Lish said, maybe not. I know that Lish still kept a big silver spoon room service had brought up to the hotel room the night she and the busker got together, and the twins, when they were old enough, took turns using it to scoop the natural chunky peanut butter Lish bought at a health food co-op. They'd say, "It's my turn to use Dad's spoon," and Lish would smile and hand it over. Who knew what she was thinking? The older girls had a dad they saw fairly regularly, and for a while were willing to let the twins use him as theirs, too. But the twins didn't want him. They were happy enough with their own. I should tell you right now how I got to where I am. Single mother on the Dole, public housing, all that. It wasn't a goal of mine, certainly. As a child, I never once dreamed, I will be a poor mother. I had fully intended to be a forest ranger. Now I realize there just isn't enough human contact in that field for me. But then, look where human contact got me. They said I hadn't grieved properly over my mother's death. That was the reason I became promiscuous, they said. They said I snuck out of my bedroom window every night because I needed to forget. I needed to forget, they said, because I couldn't bear the sadness of remembering. That's what they meant by grieving properly. Remembering. Remembering everything and reacting to it and releasing it. There was more to it, but I can't remember what it was. Ha ha. So I'm not proud of it or anything, but it happened, and it's how I got to where I am. Half-a-life housing, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. City with the most hours of sunshine per year. That's another thing they say. Somewhere along the line I became pregnant. With Dill, my son, who is now 9 months old. His full name is Dillinger. I don't know who his father is. Like Lish says, if you eat a whole can of beans, how do you know which one made you fart? I don't think it's the caretaker at my dad's church, because Dill's hands are very big. Those huge hands were the first thing I noticed about Dill. The caretaker, on the other hand, had very small hands. I remember because after we'd had sex leaning up against the pulpit, he wandered over to the organ and started playing Midnight Special. I lay on top of the organ, naked as a cherub, and I remember peering down at the caretaker's hands as he played. They were small and cupped and soft like a baby's. So I'm quite sure he's not Dill's father. And, to tell you the truth, there were 8 or 9 other guys I was with at the time Dill was conceived, and most of them have faded from my memory. If I ever did know their names, I've just about forgotten them. At least I've tried to. And all this because I didn't grieve properly. The first time I saw Lish, I thought she was insane. In fact, I thought she was a baby snatcher. I had left Dill sitting on the grass in front of Half-a-Life just for a second while I paid the cab. It wasn't really called Half-a-Life. It was called Have-a-Life housing, like have a chocolate or a pretzel, but nobody called it that. Lish told me later that the Public Housing Authority people had considered all sorts of names before deciding on Have-a-Life. They tried Seek-a-Life, but it sounded too Buddhist or something, and Take-a-Life, but it sounded like a home for murderers. They couldn't call it Get-a-Life because it sounded rude, or Dial-a-Life because it was already taken, so they settled for Have-a-Life, which became Half-a-Life and sometimes Have-a-Light or Have-a-Laugh or Half-a-Loaf housing. Anyway, it was the day Dill and I moved in, and everything we owned could more or less fit into the trunk and the back seat of the cab. When I turned around, I saw Lish picking Dill up and smiling at him and talking to him. I screamed at her to put him down and ran over to where they were. She was wearing a black t-shirt with the sleeves cut off, a purple gauzy skirt, Birkenstocks with socks, and a black beret with a big silver spider brooch stuck on the front of it. She said she was sorry and tried to explain, but I just grabbed Dill and walked away. I'd heard about crazy women who couldn't have babies of their own, so they kidnapped somebody else's. Or they'd walk up and down sidewalks with empty strollers cooing to imaginary babies and buying big packages of diapers for nobody. Back then, I was extremely protective of Dill. Kind of paranoid, I guess. He was all I had. Or then again, my constant worrying might have been a result of my improper grieving. Who knows? I found out that Lish actually lived in Half-a-Life, too.